Hi, my name is Bryan Cali. I'm a senior at Parsippany High School, and as part of my S.T.E.M Pathways Distinction Project, I developed airplane winglets to reduce the U.S. military's carbon emissions. So these winglets not only have the ability to reduce the carbon emissions and improve the aerodynamic capabilities, but more important, they can revolutionize the future of the aerospace industry with new legislation, which will play a big part in the future. But to do this, we first have to start with the U.S. Air Force, which is responsible for 50% of the U.S. military's carbon emissions. And this is made even worse by the fact that jet fuel burned at high altitudes causes warming 2 to 4 times worse. And so now we're faced with these two problems that are caused as a result of burning jet fuel. And this is exactly what winglets seek to resolve. Winglets help reduce the vortex at the end of airplane wings. And so the better it does it, the smaller the vortex gets. And overall, even though these winglets can't be implemented on every single airplane, when they are implemented under the right criteria, they're able to do an amazing job. But part of the problem today is the fact that these winglets require very careful specifications. And so every airplane model requires a completely new winglet that can be similar to others, but is inherently different in some way or another to do its job like it's supposed to. And part of these problems are resolved in the research and development of each of these winglets. Successful designs have been produced by public companies such as Boeing, but the private sector has had a little bit more of a tougher time because the US military produces very few of these airplanes at a time. And so sometimes it's very hard to do that upfront research cost that can cost $1-2 billion when then it's only used on a couple planes. And so this results with the fact that a couple companies such as Beechcraft use winglets on almost all their planes, the ones that would benefit. But then other companies such as Lockheed only do it on a couple. And because Lockheed is such a great producer, it produces a very conflicting problem for the entire industry where the environment kind of suffers. As far as my prototypes go, my first prototype was a physical one. And this one was attempting to take an airplane without winglets and add them at the end to improve aerodynamics. But I quickly ran into a very simple but unexpected problem, and it's the fact that wind conditions can't be replicated close to the ground. And so I then had to figure out a way to do it differently. And so I moved on to my second prototype, which was a 3D model. And so this is the way that companies design these very winglets. They create 3D models, and then after they apply a winglet to it, they then run simulations. And so I sought to do just this using Onshape and SolidWorks. I was able to do this on a very simple aircraft at first, which I thought would help me get into it. But the problem was that this airplane, it turns out, could never benefit from using winglets, and that's because it didn't meet the criteria. So after around 300 hours of work, I had to start all over. And that's when I then moved on to my third prototype, and that's of a Lockheed C-130. And it's basically a big cargo plane that doesn't have winglets. And even though there were many produced, this is definitely one of the ones that should be the top priority for the aerospace industry. This third prototype, I wanted to make to almost perfection, and so I had to make a 3D model of the entire plane. And once I was able to finish that, I then designed around 43 different winglets, each one a little bit different that perfected a specific angle, a specific material. And in the end, I was able to improve aerodynamics by a little over 10%. And so this means that in the end, it's able to reduce fuel costs by a little under 9%. It's able to improve the overall mobility, the structural stability at certain altitudes, and just many things that these computational airflow simulations allow you to then do. And so after this, I then applied this same streamlined process to many other airplanes, and I was able to improve around 7 to 8 airplanes so far. And so this means that if these winglets were implemented in the real world, they would obviously have to go through some wind tunnel testing after being fabricated, but to a very high degree of certainty, they should work pretty effectively.